Hello and welcome to In-House Matters by Lawcadia. This is a new series of short, sharp conversations with legal leaders. And we're here to talk about the practical challenges and opportunities facing in-house legal teams with a focus on what really works. I'm Sasha Kirk, co-founder and chief marketing officer at Lawcadia, and I'm really excited to kick things off with someone who's played a pivotal role in helping legal teams succeed in technology, our own COO, Eryn Bowles. Before we dive in, this session is being recorded and we're going to share a copy afterwards. And feel free to drop a question in the Q&A box as we go through the session, and I'll try to cover those off at the end. Introducing Eryn. Eryn has led dozens of legal tech rollouts across both corporate and government sectors. She brings deep knowledge of operational design, change management, and stakeholder engagement. And most importantly, she knows what it's like inside a busy legal team. Welcome, Eryn. It's great to have you here.
Thank you very much, Sasha. It's very nerve-wracking, but I'm excited.
Fantastic. Well, it's great to have you as a guinea pig. I'm really excited too because we've got some other amazing guests that are going to be joining us in the next couple of months. So setting the scene and a little bit of context, during your time at Lawcadia, which has been, I think, at least 6 or 7 years, I've lost count, you've been involved with over 50 Lawcadia implementations. Tell me about your approach and how you like to run implementations.
Yeah, so I think generally speaking, I do like waterfalls as a standard from a project methodology, but I think it changes depending on the team and depending on the type of personalities that you have in the team. So I think it's really important to pick the team and understand what their desires are and then work with them with their strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah, I think that makes complete sense because every legal team is different, has different ways of operating, different structures, and quite often different objectives and different goals that they're trying to achieve. So when it comes to a successful legal tech rollout, what do you think really defines it? How do we know what is going to be successful and what does success look like?
So I think success looks like to me is at the end, everybody is happy with the product. I think we need to make sure that we're not too rigid at the beginning because when the individuals see it in a sales meeting compared to when they're using it, it's very, very different. So while it's good to have an idea in your head about your requirements of what you're expecting when you come in, you do need to have a little bit more of an open mind to go, okay, well, when I'm using this system in anger, what does that then look like? What processes am I taking out? I think a little bit of flexibility, bringing in a little bit of an agile approach with the team and understanding that things will change over time. I always hit deadlines because I understand how important they are, especially when you're reporting back. I think it's good that you've got someone who can go, actually, this is what you can achieve with these changes in this time. This is what we can do after go live. Sometimes it doesn't necessarily look like it did at the beginning of the project, but as long as you're hitting all your goals along the way and everybody's happy, I think it works well.
You've talked about a process for getting to that go live when the legal technology platform is starting to be used by the team and then post go live. Typically, what do you see pre go live? And then what types of things would you then say, actually, let's look at that, after?
Yeah, so I think what happens initially is they might have 1 or 2 workflows that they're going to go into production. But then when we start using it, then everyone has all these, oh, well, we can do document automation, we can do this, we can do that. So the scope changes quite a bit. And so what I like to do is obviously as much as possible, and the big wins we're going to have on go live. So if that means that we extend the scope, that's fine. We will make sure that we go live. Generally, it's the document automation that comes later if we've got so much going on that we can then work with other teams to bring it in. So if we wanted to deal with procurement, we can bring those in, HR, etc. That's generally after go live. I think because I'm managing the implementation, well, our team is managing the implementation as well as the support. We're very much focused on getting it right the first time because it's going to make our life easier. The idea is that everybody is happy. We're doing a lot of training. After the project happens, you're still in project phase for a good 6 months. We're still going to check in on you. We're doing pop-in sessions. We're making sure that we have adoption so that at the end of the 6 months, we very rarely hear from you because everybody's across everything.
So it sounds like from your perspective and your experience, there's that period of time up until the go live point where the legal technology goes into production with the team. But actually that's not the end of the rollout. There's still another 4, 5, 6 months where you are adjusting, fine tuning, utilizing it and making sure that you're getting the most out of it.
Yep. Reporting, changing the reports for different people. Again, once they see what the functionality can do, they always want more. And so we want them to be happy. So we're quite happy to work with them to get that.
So quite often we hear about project stalling or teams becoming overwhelmed or being overwhelming. What are the common pitfalls that you see when planning a rollout?
So I think the biggest pitfalls are probably IT, to be fair. Generally, the legal team and the IT team are actually quite different spectrums of the companies. So what tends to happen is there is a bit of a disconnect. So we like to get heavily involved with IT and organize all that for them. So our nerds basically talk to their nerds and everyone gets happy. It's not what the legal team are used to doing. So we don't expect them to do it. We expect it. So we will talk to their finance team if we're integrating our finance systems, IT to make sure your SSO, integration, private cloud, however you want to go, that's all working beautifully. And then we're removing those barriers by having those conversations with the IT team up front.
Yeah. Typically, before a legal tech implementation, IT would have been involved at some point, aren't they? Because they're normally doing the sign off. So you're talking about the technical realities of adding in a new system and having it integrate with their single sign-on or their SCIM systems.
Absolutely. And so, and when you're getting the sign off, it's very different. You're getting it at a higher level. So we need to talk to the doers, basically. So what we do is we talk to the doers and show them how to do it. Our documentation is phenomenal, for one. So we very rarely get any questions. But if they need hand holding, we don't count hours. So our opportunity is to make sure that you have a successful implementation. If that's going to take a few hours that we have to sit down with IT and walk them through the process, we're happy to do that because it makes our life easier in the end and it makes our clients' life easier in the process. Legal teams aren't used to doing projects. That's not their bread and butter. So we don't expect them to understand all the processes related to that.
So what you're then trying to do is trying to connect the dots because the people, the team that have signed off on the IT or signed off the project, they're not necessarily the people that are doing that implementation, the nitty gritty. And so you're then connecting the dots, making sure that they understand enough, got all the documentation, that everything's run smoothly, and then being able to test it and then actually having it working. So that magic at the end of the day that brings it all together and then it's up and running.
Yeah. And, sometimes it's as simple as just giving someone your number so that if they have a problem, they can call you. And as opposed to going to just a general email or someone who's not technical, they've got someone they can call and they know that's going to be resolved there and then.
I know with a lot of legal teams that we work with, we get quite different teams who sit along a spectrum where some legal teams have got all of their intake forms and their workflows and their documents and their template. They've got it all worked out beforehand and they know exactly what they're kind of wanting you to work with during an implementation, right through to the other end where they are grasping and they're not quite sure what direction to move in. Generally, how do you approach those different types of legal teams and what sort of recommendations do you have when working with them?
Obviously, very differently. When we're dealing with someone who's not really sure of what to go or has an Excel spreadsheet at the moment and they're doing their best, we really take the time to understand what their process is, why they do the things that they do, and then create something for them. And so it's very, we go off, we understand the process, we create the workflows, we then show them the workflows. This is how it would work. Are we missing any steps? Do you see anything? And we will go through with a fine-tooth comb so that they're confident. When you're dealing with a client who's probably got BAs doing everything that they need to do and they've got a list of this is what we need to do, while it's a similar process, we still like to understand why they're doing what they're doing because everybody needs to be aware of why we're doing or why we're asking certain questions and what that then means. If there are areas that we see that are going to save time or other clients have done and it's worked really well, we will obviously recommend that just to ease the transition and make sure that their reporting mainly is up to scratch. So My goal is to make the GC's life easier and maybe get a promotion or a pay increase. So we just need to make sure that those reports show everything they need to.
Regardless of where a team is at, if you could encourage them to spend time on just one thing before they start an implementation, what would that be?
I think it's understanding the reports that they want. So, generally speaking, if we have an understanding of what you're wanting to show the C suite, we can create a very easy workflow from that, making sure that you're hitting that as well as getting extra information. So, yeah, it's understanding what do my bosses want to see, what's most important to them, and then making sure that we're hitting that. The lower stuff comes really easily, and it will come through conversation. It's more, what are my bosses wanting?
Yeah. The kind of starting with the stakeholders and having that end in mind, and then
Yeah.
making sure then those details are then that then can sort of layer up to that bigger picture.
Absolutely.
And so talking about stakeholders, and you mentioned the C-suite, and we've talked earlier about IT and finance. How do you get everyone pulling in the same direction with a legal tech rollout?
Communication. That's the biggest thing. Over communicate. The worst thing people can say is, I don't need any more emails from you. If everyone feels that it's going in the right direction, they know what they need to do in the roles, then there's no confusion. There's no conversations that are happening outside the project. They're happening in the project. Regarding stakeholder engagement, that can be a little bit more difficult because generally they are once removed. So it's making sure that we're providing the project plan every week, updating what activities we've done and what we're going to do. My idea is the more information, any questions they have, we can then answer them. But generally speaking, because we do over communicate, we don't really get too many questions.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And typically, what works best with the project team? Is it the general counsel who's leading the project, or what do you normally find works the best?
Oh, look, I think the general counsel involvement's always nice to have, but not essential. We just need the rocks of the team. It's very clear who the rocks are in the team, and the rocks are the people that these are the ones who get stuff done all the time. They know what they're doing. They know most of what's going on in the organization. We can get 90% there with them. That's when the GC is good to just kind of give us a bit of an understanding of those overarching high level goals. But generally, 3 or 4 people who really are quite happy to be engaged. It's always good to have a problem child as well, someone who might be a little bit more resistant to change, because they're the ones who are going to throw the curveballs and we need to make it work for them.
And any tips for getting that executive support?
Oh, I think the reporting for sure. So showing them the level of reporting that they can give is always going to give them the support. Pretty pictures, unfortunately. So yes, they want to know the detail, but really they just want to know that you've got it covered. So the more pretty pictures that you can send to say, this is where everything is at, I've got it under control, leave it with me, the easier your life is.
Now, you've said to me before that success isn't about the technology, it's about the people. What makes the difference when it comes to adoption?
Understanding your team and understanding the different personality types. So when we're doing training, if you know that someone is going to struggle, let's do a separate training session with them. I will spend extra time with them. Our team will spend extra time with them to make sure that they're across it, they understand it, and they're not scared of it. Lawyers especially, a lot of lawyers haven't used a lot of technology. So they're going to be resistant at times. But if you take the time and show them why it's beneficial for them, they will get on board and they will be your biggest allies.
And what about then getting adoption from the business? What sort of tips or suggestions and practical ways have you used to get the business using the intake forms, for example?
Well, I mean, the beauty of the business using it is we're actually removing any boundaries that they have to come to legal. So because everyone can, with SSO, get an account, that no one has to worry that they don't have access to it. So they know if I need legal, I press this button and I have a form. They fill out everything that they can and they can track where it's going through. So it's no longer like an email that is the ether. They have no idea what's happening to it. So they can now see who's got it, what's going on. They can now do health statuses with it. They can ask for feedback. So they can actually use the system to go, actually, I'm across it. And again, it's communication. They can see clearly what's going on so they don't fret.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting because when I'm talking to legal teams that haven't used an intake tool before, they have lots of reservations, and the legal team are really uncertain about how the business is going to respond to it. In the actual practical experience that you have in getting the systems implemented, what typically do you see? What actually happens in practice?
Oh, the business love it. Absolutely love it, because they know what they have to respond to legal. They don't have the 10 emails back and forth because they haven't provided enough information. They know who's dealing with it. They know where to go. I think that is definitely very helpful. Also, we have fantastic support, obviously. And on our system, we have a little help bot. That help bot actually contacts a real person. So we don't provide training to the general business. One, because the system's so intuitive. But two, if they do need help, there is a button there and it's a real person. And we can do Teams calls, Zoom calls, and walk them through it. Generally speaking, the business has no issue. They take to it like a duck to water.
I think that's really interesting. And it's the way that times have moved, right? Everyone wants something instantly. And sending an email and waiting for someone to respond is that instant response that everyone sort of wants or expects these days.
No,
And
I mean,
you
I'm
sort of-
impatient. And I'm
Yes.
sure you're impatient too. Like, if I'm doing
Yeah.
something, I want help there and then. I don't want help tomorrow. So that's what the help bot's for. And that's not just obviously for the business, that's also for the legal team as well. If you're getting stuck in an area, one of the biggest things we do in training is don't try and fix it yourself. Just ask a
Yeah.
question like we're next to you.
Okay. So when it comes to training for the business users and the intakes forms, training isn't really necessary because they've got that support if they need it and they can intuitively work their way through. But training, I guess, does have an important role to play for the legal team themselves and making sure that they understand what is available and how they can get the most out of it. How do you normally tend to structure training?
Obviously, it will depend on the size of the team, but generally we'll do about 3 different types of trainings at different days, very close to go live or after go live, and at different times. So different people can attend. What we also do though is pop-in sessions. So generally when we go live, we will set up pop-in sessions for a good 2 weeks. Now that's just a Teams meeting that anyone can join. We find it really helps with people who are unsure of asking in a bigger group, but when they come on and someone's just sitting there, they're quite happy to ask any questions and we can walk through and go into a little bit more information with them and give them that one-on-one training. And we find that really helps with adoption. Generally speaking, we will stop those pop-in sessions after like a week and a half because everyone's come and asked questions. But, you know, we do them at different times. Different people work different ways. We're very aware of that.
And at what part of the process do you make tweaks or changes? Is it something that you hold off to the end, or is it something that you do before the go live and after the go live? What do you typically tend to see happening?
Oh, look, we do it. Depends on different things for different teams. So we normally will always do a tweak after we start doing UAT testing.
Is
So
user acceptance
Yep.
for those who
Sorry,
are
so that's
who
those-
aren't familiar with the jargon.
So that's the core people. Once they do their testing and they're using it, they go, oh, what about this? And what about this? So we'll make those changes. When we're then doing the training sessions with the bigger team, we will take note of any feedback that they give and we go back to that project team and just say, this is what the feedback is. Would we like to adopt it? So generally it'll be like the first 2 weeks that we might make some changes based on the training that we do with the greater team. Then what we find is probably around the 3-month mark when we just have another session, there might be some other tweaks coming in there because we can see how the system's being used. You can see the reporting. And generally speaking, the more you see, the more you want. So that's when you might get an extra question here and there because you're wanting to report on this type of compliance, etc. So we can add that in and then keep track of it. Our account management is also very good. So once the project does finish, you then have an account management session probably once every 3 months. And if there's tweaks there, I mean, we're here to support you. That's what we do. So we're happy to do those tweaks here and there.
Yeah, I think that's great feedback. And I think it also makes it less, I'm not sure whether black and white is the right word, but this idea that you have to have it perfect to start with, that's really hard because you don't really know what perfect is.
Oh, it's
But
a lot
this
of pressure.
idea, yes, so much pressure. And then I guess this idea, then you don't have to get it perfect and you're not going to get it perfect. let's not over engineer anything. You're not going to get it perfect, and that you can then make changes as you get feedback and things like that.
Absolutely. And, your company changes over time and you need to be able to move with the company. And I think that's why Lawcadia is so great to implement, that even like a year after, we're still making changes because your company's evolving so we can evolve with you.
Yeah. So in that sort of scenario is when organizations restructure their teams or business units change names or different things like that. Is that what you're talking about?
Absolutely. Yep. And even things like we've had companies where legislations come in and we need to add a question regarding the legislation because we need to start reporting on that. So, those can come in years after the full implementation. And I think the fact that you can still change it and it flows with you definitely helps.
So looking back over your time with Lawcadia on implementations, and I think it's 7 years, what are some of the most important lessons that you've learned from legal tech projects that have gone really well?
I think communication is the biggest, hands down. So I think you need to make sure that you're establishing it very early. This is what was agreed. Is everyone on board? Perfect. And then track to that. I also think it's flexibility. I think, being able to move with the team as it changes, as different personalities come in, understanding that, because project management is not necessarily about managing tasks. It's about managing the people. And if you don't manage the people, your project's never going to go well.
And so what would be your advice then for someone who's looking to start their first legal tech project rollout? What would that advice be?
I think if you're not, you need to feel comfortable with the people that you've got. So if you're employing someone, whether that's me or Lawcadia or another system, you need to feel that, one, they're going to deliver it and they're not delivering it to a contract, they're delivering it to an outcome. And so if you have that confidence when you go in, you should be pretty good.
So it's delivering it and also that confidence that it can work with the people that are going to be using it.
Yeah. I've seen many projects that when you've got project managers delivering to a project and you find out very quickly when they're like, you've only had 3 hours for this, they're going to go off the track because they're in it to land and expand. They're not in it to get that outcome for the end user.
Thanks, Eryn. I know that's really resonates with a lot of people. Now, I'm just going to toggle over and see if we've got some questions from the audience. And we do have a question, and I'm glad I've got the Q&A working again. Thank you, everyone, for your patience. This is my first time using Teams webinars, so I'm working with the technology and learning as I go. So the question is, how do you deal with problem children that don't like change? So I think this is talking to that resistance that we would all identify with when you've got to do something differently. How do you manage that?
Well, I love it because there's nothing more satisfying than when you've got someone who's like that and then you turn them around. Generally speaking, like I said, identify them early, separate them and start having conversations with them, because if they're resistant, it's because they feel like they're not being listened to or they don't understand. And so you just need to take the time, like you would with anyone, and say, this is what the outcome is. What are you worried about? And work with them. I have generally turned all of them round and they become my biggest advocate on the projects. And that's the same with external lawyers as well. Sometimes those problem children are going to be the ones who, when you turn them around, are going to shout the loudest about how fantastic it is.
Yeah. Okay. So what I'm hearing is actually be inclusive, be quite, I guess, respectful. Yeah. Understanding and identifying that there's probably reasons why they are resistant and unpacking and digging down to what that might be and resolving that. Thank you, Eryn. That brings us to the end of our first episode of In-House Matters by Lawcadia. Thank you, Eryn, for sharing so many practical insights. And thank you to everyone who joined us today. We're going to be sending the recording and some key takeaways. If you'd like to know more about how Lawcadia supports legal teams with technology and workflow automation, feel free to reach out to me, or you can explore more at our website at lawcadia.com. And stay tuned. Our next episode is coming at the end of the month, and we have a fantastic guest speaker lined up for that. And we have more coming over the next few months. So something that I'm very excited about.